Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. Welcome to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. You can reach us at 855-226-8551. I have not said that for a while. I want to bring it back, the personal finance headquarters.
I know. I like that. It's been a while since we've used that one, Seth.
Yeah. But the rest will remain the same as far as like how you can connect with us today. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Folks, today we have got guests in store for you. We have a topic that's appropriate no matter who or where you are, and that is going to be on an aging America and what this means for you. We want to take a look at investing, how to invest with a massive surge in our population pushing through, and what is that going to mean in terms of, how to get ahead of the curve and how to understand, how to approach an aging America, because for a lot of this, it might be you, it might be your parents, but we're all affected some way, somehow. So we're hoping to prep you in that. And with us today, we've got Dan Micelohn, Ben Brayshaw, and new to the show. Would you please introduce yourself, because I can't do it any better than you can.
Thanks a lot, Seth. My name is Anthony Scola.
Wonderful. Anthony.
Tony.
Yeah, Tony, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself first and foremost? Like, where do you come from? Because I've never met you before.
Come on. That's
Thanks
horrible.
a lot. Thanks a lot.
That's not a very nice way to introduce.
No, it's horrible.
Well, I'll just go back. Ben and I have gone way back. Actually, Dan as well. I was an independent back.
Sorry about that last part.
That's okay. It's okay. It's good to have him in person, though.
And he's back again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started back in the business in early 90s, and when I moved to New Hampshire, Ben and I actually worked independent in the same area and did a lot of work together, and Dan as well actually was one of my OSJs, so kind of moved in a different direction throughout my career and spent some time with Wirehouse and independent, as I mentioned, and then got into some bank work and ran some programs for some mutual banks and institutions in the area before being enticed to join the Brayshaw Group late last year. So
Yeah.
glad to be part of the organization.
Well, that's not the story that Ben tells me as I've been getting a chance to actually get to know you.
It's much better than that.
Yeah. But it's really we're really fortunate to have you with us today, Anthony. And
I want to speak into that a little bit and take the opportunity here on the radio. No, I'm just teasing. No, I'm really excited that Tony's joined us. It's been fantastic. I mean, Tony and I have been friends for we're approaching 20 years. So that's it's great to be actually working together in the same office, and he's a great partner to have in every accord. So, Dan and I, we're just really happy to have you. Seth is too, I think. We'll see.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm used to take from 3,000 miles.
I'm such a hard guy to like or like back. It's always been that way, so don't worry about it. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a new voice for us today, and I think it's a voice of reason. And
we need that here.
Yeah, we're going to keep us a little grounded. And Dan, you're no longer a new person to the Money and Tap family.
I feel like a seasoned veteran.
You are. Gosh. All right, you folks, we're going to have some fun today, as you can tell. But before we get going too far down the road, it is time for Money in the News. You guys at Robinhood making trading like candy? Is that what it is? I mean, you're going to go into some kind of a cartoon land and make trading like a pop fizz jingle jangle thing over here for everybody?
I think the word Robin Hood has become an everyday dinner table conversation with about just every, high schooler, college kid that I stumble across meeting with my kids. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I got a Robin Hood account. I'm trading stock too." It's kind of an interesting scenario. I mean, Bloomberg brings up this article here on April 21st. This article it talks about the entire evolution of Robinhood, this online trading app with Bat and Vlad. I mean, I've seen Vlad on TV. I've seen him testify, and I've watched all this craziness. But it's just kind of interesting what they've done to make, trading stocks, grab the Gen Zers and get them totally lured in to becoming like. And honestly, I mean, what they have done to the conversation about stocks and trading, and we're hearing about Reddit and all this craziness with all these, GameStop and AMC and all the nuts kind of things that are happening, they have contributed to that pretty heavily inside the idea that, I mean, almost trading is gambling. Now, I would agree that it is in some capacity, but I think there's a difference between trading and investing. And the line is whether or not you believe in something, you're looking to hold it, you want to be an owner of a company, and gambling is where you think you're going to throw your money in and make a quick buck, and you really have no basis for why you own the company or what the reason for it is. And that's super dangerous. Super dangerous.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think it is fascinating. I think there's part of this that really addresses a need for us as a society as whole. Is financial education is a huge thing that we are needing. There's a gap here. We need more people investing, and we talk about this so often. Hey, if you were just getting out of high school, could you take $50 a month and start to put it over into something as simple as an index fund? If that's the most simple possible approach to have, since you have so much time. What they've done here with Robinhood, which is something to really applaud, I would say, which is the behavioral informed design. And they sum it up in a PowerPoint friendly 4-step model that shows how the smartest designers were turning products into habits. And that's what they've done with the Robinhood application. Is it has created this easy path. It's just flattened it and leveled the playing field for so many people out there to be able to start investing. So bravo. At the same time, investors, this is not buying this is, what do you call it? It's not cotton candy at the carnival, folks. This is real deal.
Yeah, it's I mean, basically it's like a scratch ticket. Yeah. I think was what was used as an example in the article. And I don't think they're mocking them. I think they're just saying that, hey, listen, when you launch your app, you actually get to scratch off what your first stock is that they give you for free. And it instantly,
and balloons fall and confetti happens, and
and then you now have a stock that you're watching. It's extremely clever to drag people into gambling, because that's what they're. I mean, I honestly do believe that they're just promoting straight up gambling and that they're not building real investors. Though I think that teach their own and take as much risk as you want. I mean, we have gambling is legal in a lot of states these days, so. Yeah. I think this is where, our the SEC, the FINRA regulators, they're all trying to figure out, where do they step in? What should they be doing? What shouldn't they be doing? But I will tell you that through this whole pandemic, the millennials and the Gen Zers have proven how smart they are, because they have literally put out of business hedge fund companies and made them lose billions and billions of dollars, and they have figured out how to manipulate the system. So kudos to them for outsmarting the people who have been in the business for, decades upon hundreds of years of firms that they have. I think honestly that's the biggest kick in the teeth and funny
from my perspective. So,
folks, that's going to do it for us at Money in the News. We're
already, Seth? Already?
It's that quick. It's that quick. We got that big of a show coming up here for you that we can't take any more time away. It's going to happen. It's going to happen quick. It's going to happen now. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And one other plug here. YouTubers out there. Yeah, we're there too. We haven't really said that a whole lot, but it's one of the places where we put information together for you. And hopefully here in the near future, we'll look forward to being able to put some videos and stuff like that together. So you know what? It's going to be fun, and we're going to have a load of fun engaging with you guys today. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Money on Tap.
For a number of our listeners, they have a lot of questions, and you might be one of them. Today, we're just offering what we call Zoominars, webinars over Zoom meeting rooms where we have top experts, Social Security, estate planning, and financial planning experts for you to speak with, do a private consultation that way today. We're also having webinar-based Zoominars where we're going to have multiple groups where you can be part of that and enjoy that as well. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com to schedule your Zoominar.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Folks, we are having a great time here today. We've got guests. We've got people that have been around the horn a few times. Ben and I are here, and what does that mean? Well, we're going to get a lot of opinions here today. We're going to get a lot of facts. We're also going to get a different perspective on what an aging America means to you. What does that look like pushing through our economy? And what does that look like in terms of investments? And I think there's also a place that we want to kind of have a little bit of a heart moment here with you, which is recognizing that we have people in our lives today that are aging. And whether that's you, whether that's your parents or your grandparents, whoever those people are, there are things that you can be preparing for and you can be thoughtful about in walking through a season of life that can be very hard to relate with at times, that can be really hard to connect with and or even prepared for. And I would say for myself, I'm one of those people that I don't want to look at it with when I take a look at my parents. It's a hard thing for me to connect that this is my mom and dad in their 80s. Life is different for them. What do I need to be doing as their son? Because it's different as a planner. I would say that's one of the things that's the human part of who we are here today with you. And I look forward to the stories. And Ben, would you please take it from there and talk more?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a lot of really good points. I mean, all of us deal with clients in lots of different positions that are difficult and complicated. And we have, it's not just parents, it's spouses too. There's all sorts of different issues and concerns. I think the thing is that, around every difficulty, around every concern, everything that you're trying to mitigate inside your investments along with your issue, like the parents and what's going on with that demographic, there's always a buying and selling scenario there. There's always what should I do with my investments based on this event in life? And we talk about this from time to time. We talk about how we have 320 million Americans in this country, and that's a lot of people. I mean, that is a group of people that are all making decisions at different courses and stands in their life, at different age brackets, at the time in which they're retiring or entering the workforce or having children. We all have these different kind of experiences, but how you're investing your money at that time in your life is really one of those things that is dictated by those circumstances, or even how much you're investing or how you're allocating those funds. And I think the thing is that we talk a lot about aging America and what that is. And what I want to talk about today, and I think the big course of the conversation is really about how to invest around aging America, how to make money around aging America. What is aging America doing with their money, and how is that going to impact your investments moving forward? I think this is the conversation of a show that you really need to be having with anybody you're doing investment work with. Because ultimately, if you're not having this conversation, you may be missing out or leaving yourself liable or in a potentially problematic investment standpoint.
Yeah, that's completely true. I mean, each phase of life has its own needs and concerns and risks and things that just need to be addressed. And there's no more, or at least as important as any other component of that is how you financially plan for those times and what money gets set aside and for what intended purpose it may be. So that's where the advice and counsel of planners like us who've had the benefit of seeing many families and individuals go through all these turns and twists in life, we can apply that knowledge and experience to your personal situation. And that's really the benefit that we bring and honestly, the joy of the work we do.
Dan, you actually have some personal experience working with your grandparents and doing in-home care with them through a season of their life too. So there is that personal aspect that you just cannot deny in that perspective in what we're about to talk about too.
Yeah, nothing brings you closer to realizing the importance of these things and kind of the delicacy of those times than going through it with a loved one. I mean, it was impactful in every kind of way.
Yeah.
And when it's your situation, it's more than money. It's it's real life and it's loved ones. And for us, it's sometimes easier to be a step removed and be dealing really with the kind of the facts and figures of the matter without having to have that same degree of emotional attachment. I mean, it may feel detached or cold, but the advice that we're giving comes from experience and is really intended to get you through those experiences in the best possible way.
Tony, you're new to Money on Tap today, but not new to investing, not new to this scenario and these questions. My question for you is, first question out of the gate, would you like that to be a softball or a hardball today?
Oh, yeah, I love a softball over here.
Okay, I'll give you the softball. I'll tell you what the hardball is first. So, hey, let's talk about making money, supply and demand. How do you make money? And then here's the softball. How do you make money on this situation?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think Dan made a lot of really good points in terms of the phase of life type of thing. I do definitely have a larger planning background than just the investment portion of it, and have spent a lot of time developing strategies for folks because at each stage of life there are different needs and importances. And one of the things I tend to start with making money in particular is kind of start with an end in mind. Is if you don't have a goal, you have no way to benchmark your progress. People are very familiar with, looking at different ways to determine their success in investing, but it's different for each individual. So depending on where you want to end up and what you're planning for really should determine what you're setting your sights on for investment performance and how to make money. Mm-hmm. And that gets into the risk portion as well, because a lot of people don't want to take, especially as they are aging, any more risk than necessary. But sometimes that's the risk. If they don't take enough, then they run the risk of not making enough, especially with life expectancies continuing to be pushed out later and later. The assets that people have need to be able to last that length of time to protect them, whether it's for their lifestyle or for health or for estate transfer if that's what's important to them. So, more complicated question than being a softball.
That's for sure.
That was great.
That was for sure. I think about the aging America, and I think let's just jump into the demographic shift. I think that would be the next best step, and we'll kind of go through that and how that might be from an investment piece, really the next move. When we talk about investments and we're working through the conversation of that with our clients and looking at where the market's moving, really you have to ask yourself kind of how the history of, like, for instance, the baby boomers have driven investing for the past 40 years. They've been investing since, day one, putting their money in their 401ks and breaking it, across that kind of generic theme of large, mid, and small cap investments, kind of the large companies down to the small companies. And, that demographic has made money that way. They've made money that way by continuing to put money in and so forth. But I look at things and how the world's moving, and the change is this. There's about 320 million Americans, and if you've heard our show before, you've heard us talk about this. But this is the investment story. The investment story is those 320 million Americans, basically only about 15% of America's retired. But that's the highest it's ever been. In 2007, we crossed about 5% of America retired for the first time ever, and now we're at 15. And in the next 20 years, we're going to go from about 35 million, 40 million people retired to a total of 120 million Americans retired.
You know, I love it, Ben. I just pulled up this seniorcare.com Aging America website, and the number right now, I'm watching some of the digits like roll by as you're talking, is 56,776,000 and 76. Just moved to 76, but hit 77. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people, and they're retiring at such huge rates. And when you think about what, like Lee Iacocca, for instance, and how he transformed the automobile industry by, the Mustang, the Pinto, the minivan, like he was moving along with the demands of the baby boomers, and that's why he was so successful.
And that was pretty much his generation, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think he's more the silent generation.
Yeah, he was right before that, but he was watching this. He had the perspective of the demand.
Right, supply, demand.
Right.
These are who we're going to be catering to.
So when you take that into an investment piece and you start looking at what is the supply and demand story around investments and how does that work? Well, the baby boomers are retiring every day, and people walk through our door and say, I need two things. I need enough income to retire, and I don't want to lose my money. That's just saying I need income and safety.
Yeah.
Now, in today's marketplace, when you start looking at different things, there's lots of different ways you can go to safety. But when they look at their 401k, and John Hancock had a study, and I've talked about this before, I think it's like 86% of Americans never rebalance or reallocate their 401k. They never change it. So that means from day one to the day they retire, they hit, oh, goodness gracious, I have all these small caps and mid cap. I don't need all this risk, and I want to lower that risk. And when I lower that risk, I want to get income. And we see people moving to like large blue chip companies. And you normally think, hey, listen, a lot of people would be racing towards bonds, but we all know that bonds yields have just dropped, like a rocket. Or dropped like a rock, I guess I should say, not a rocket, right?
Like a rocket.
Dropped like a rocket.
Forget that one.
But
one of Elon Musk's rockets.
Yeah.
Those tend to drop.
Those do drop, right. But, when you start thinking about that, people don't want the bonds because they know that as soon as rates go up, their bonds are going to drop in value. And if you don't understand that, that's something you should give us a call about. But what we see is people moving to this lower risk, higher yield, income positioned portfolio. And if all of a sudden 38% of the current population all of a sudden is doing that as a big group, that's a massive tandem swing in our market based on how money's being allocated. Now, that doesn't mean that the small cap and the mid cap assets are not good companies. They could be totally the greatest company in the world doing wonderful things. But the truth is if people don't want to own that company, it's going to force the share price down. Do I think this is a massive problem that's going to really heavily impact our stock market? I'm not sure on that level, but I think that over the next 20 years, just even looking at some of the charts we have, like the asset allocation diversifications for the last 20 years, you can see trends of large cap value just continuing to rise on average over the last 20 years. You can just see them moving forward. You can see that demand naturally increasing just by the numbers. I think that people can make a lot more money than they realize taking a lot less risk over the next 20 years versus the person who's getting ready for retirement. This is the danger zone, right? This is the person getting ready to retire or thinking I'm going to retire in 5 or 10 years saying, well, I'm just going to keep things as is. And meanwhile, people are slowly selling those assets that they own in their portfolio, those small and mid cap, like seeing a decline in those. And then them getting to retirement saying, boy, I didn't see as much growth as the market saw. Right? When we talk about the S&P 500, we're talking about large cap companies. We're not talking about small and mid. And people don't realize that. Like, oh, I own the S&P 500. We're good there. That's great, but does that really get you the large cap value play that seems to have the upward trend and continuing to move forward? Not entirely. You get exposure to it, but if the growth trend fails and the value, you could net a zero on that. So now I think when we talk about aging America and the investing, that's really kind of the first piece. That's kind of the scope of kind of break down your investments. But then as we shift, we talk about long-term care. I'm going to pass it over to Dan.
Yeah, that's what, one of the biggest threats to even the best laid financial plan is the medical risk and the immense cost that comes with any type of a nursing home or assisted living experience. So that, as planners, that's one of the things that is probably the least fun conversation you can possibly have with a prospect or a client, but one of the most critical. As we spend, hours and hours building out that plan, and over the course of years of investing with somebody and, hundreds of meetings, the biggest threat that truly exists is the unknown of how to fund an absolutely tragic and traumatic and hugely expensive care situation. And we think we found a couple decent solutions for that. In particular, there's one product offered through a company that we work with called One America that addresses a lot of these needs. And, really to kind of keep it short, but the biggest thing that they offer that we feel like makes them unique in that market is that they have a joint lifetime benefit. So you'd be able to cover, at least to some extent, long-term care and nursing home type expenses over the entire lives of a couple, which
and
is
in-home care with that as well.
In-home care included as well, which is a big trend now, obviously, with as the pandemic has affected nursing homes and medical facilities in general. People have always wanted to stay out of there as long as they possibly could, and this has only enhanced that story. And that home care situation is really something that people, would choose to go through first and try and spend as much time with family at home as they possibly could. And these policies are geared up to do that. So, that is one of the ways that we can address that situation, maybe not in its entirety, but certainly to a level enough to, give a family and give a married couple some choice and a little bit of funding and the ability to kind of dictate how care will be received, as the health deteriorates. And, again, as planners, it's not a fun topic, but it's a critical one to address and at least understand what that risk represents for everybody.
Well, how many times have you had the conversation with a client and you're taking a look at where they've allocated their money and they've got a significant portion of their assets built up in a 401k or an IRA, and we refer to that here as being IRA poor. You got a lot of money, but it's in a qualified pool of money, the IRA or the 401k, and every time you take a distribution on that, it's taxable, and there's no way around it. Or you don't have the ability to really funnel that money over into a long-term care solution. And so having that conversation, how many times have you gotten kind of locked into there just isn't a solution over here in the long-term care world for you because you don't have the assets where we need them to be, and how do we get them over there? And I loved how you were talking about them having some real opportunity for people that are there right now.
Yeah, this care is expensive, and one of the things that really holds people back from adding it to their plan is the cost of it, and how do they most effectively acquire that care. And this product does offer a solution there. They are actually able to take qualified or IRA dollars and use those funds to build a pool of available dollars to be spent in a long-term care situation, again, whether that be at home or a nursing home or assisted living. And they're truly unique in that. They're really the only company that's able to do that. And that's one of the reasons that we look to them is, people hate the notion of this kind of misconception they have of the old nursing home insurance where you pay for it forever, it's exorbitantly expensive, and if you don't have that care event, you get no benefit. It's essentially the insurance company keeping your money. That is absolutely not the case here. With this particular product, we recommend whether you use it for care costs, whether you decide to opt out and request back your premium, or if you hold it and end up passing on, you and your spouse, without ever having that care event, you're lucky enough to do that, then it would pass on to your estate, to your beneficiaries as you've designated. So you'll never run into that situation where the money was spent and just never came back to you.
Dan, I've used this product pretty regularly with people who are looking for long-term care solutions, and I'll tell you, there is just them having a patent on that qualified, that retirement funds to put that money in without taking that huge tax hit and being able to move that money very slowly but instantly provide you that full long-term care coverage, I think is fantastic. it is a solution that has been needed across the board. There's not a lot of conversation around it. I mean, people don't know who One America is. It's an A-rated company. They don't understand the quality of the company behind it. And, when you realize that you have a really solid program out here that's going to resolve your need, because so many people are laden with too much IRA money. Like, that kind of sounds silly, but people say, well, I don't have too much IRA money. I'm just taking, but they're taking income from their IRAs, maybe in retirement, but they maybe don't take all the income they could take. There's a portion of it they could still, sustain the regular income by segmenting a portion out and then maybe allocating it to a One America contract. That is just a huge solution piece.
Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We appreciate you joining us here today. If you are grabbing us right now via radio, welcome. We enjoy the opportunity to have those conversations with you. If you're grabbing us through a podcast, or if you'd like to listen to us again, or some of the other podcasts that we've put out there, just go to your podcast venue. Any one of them will have us at Money on Tap, and that's a lot of fun for us to hear from you folks too. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more An Aging America, and what will this look like for you? Folks, we have a lot of fun doing this show, Money on Tap, and Ben and I have been financial planners for years and years, and our goal here with you is to bring you into the room, have the conversations that we have. We think these are critical conversations for you, but we understand this is a limited space, and what we'd love to do is to open the doors to you with us at Brayshaw Financial Group, so you could experience what it means to have three-dimensional planning in your life. Let's take a look at all sides of your situation, your scenario, and see how we can put together the best plan possible, taking into account your risk. How much can you have in the market? How much do we need to have set aside and doing different things for your life? That's what we do as planners, how we engage with you, and we welcome you to do that with us. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, if you have $250,000 that are investable assets today, our planning is free to you. We want you to have the playbook to have a successful experience in retirement. Give us a call, 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Ben and I welcome you to Brayshaw Financial for complete wealth management.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. It's a topic here with you today. Believe it or not, it pertains to you, it applies to you, and it applies to all of us because we are all here together in America and we're aging, and we have an aging population that it's increasing every day. We take a look around and there's more and more people over the age of 65. And right now, if you were to take a look at the population, it's 25 states. That is the population of retired Americans right now. It's huge. Over 50 million seniors. And one of the greatest needs that we come to is people are looking for our advice as financial planners is lifetime income. And we've had lots of talks about this, and it's not the one that everybody grabs off the shelf and says, hey, let's talk about lifetime income. How do I build a pension for myself is usually what we're talking about at that point. And sometimes people come to us and they have a pension. They have more than one pension, and that's wonderful to be able to find those. But more and more, the pension or the lifetime income that a pension would have provided is not part of the story. What does the story look like? What does the landscape look like for so many of our seniors today is this. They've had more than 5 jobs. They have a 401k or maybe multiple 401ks that they've contributed towards, and they really don't know how to create income from the resources they have. They have maybe taken some classes on Social Security or talked to somebody at the Social Security Administration of what they need, what are their options, but they don't necessarily know what the best way for them to even take Social Security is. And that Social Security is really a form of lifetime income. So what I want to talk about is this, I want to kind of go into a place and understand that, yes, it's not the first thing that we want to talk about. It's not the hot stock. It's not the large cap growth. That's not what we're talking about here.
I want to talk about that.
I do too. That makes me more happy. But what happens in this conversation is we start to really put together what I think of as a worst case scenario. Like come hell or high water, whatever happens in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you know the dollars that are walking through the door. And if we can create some kind of a solution for you that's the baseline of a lifetime income where you can feel confident and comfortable that you're going to be able to live. You might have to trim something over here. It may not be your ideal solution, but if we have something in place there for you, what happens is this. We find that and studies have shown that people, live longer, and a lot of the times well into their 90s. They're much happier. They just have this presence about them that is more at peace. And what is the connection there? I don't know. I don't have the answer for you on that. It just is what we experience. And as a matter of fact, when I'm having the conversation too, and we get to that solution, I feel much better. Because now we can start to have more fun conversations around the periphery of what can we do for, legacy and, grandkids and, some of these other things that maybe, vacations. That's the fun stuff. That's the joy. But because we've done the kind of that built that foundational piece, that foundational element, the rest of it can come together. The big picture can come together. And I share this often. And this comes back to building a skyscraper and the image of building a skyscraper. I don't know if you've ever seen.
I haven't built one yet.
It's quite a journey. On average, thank you, Ben. On average, okay, we'll go around the horn here for a second. Do you know how long on average it takes to build a skyscraper? Just a guess.
2 years, 8 months, and 3 days.
Darn, that is really close. Okay. It is 3 years. It is 3 years on average. And when you think of like build up, come take a look at the most beautiful buildings in the world. Most people think of these skyscrapers. They're just incredible architectural masterpieces. Over half of the time, a year and a half, is spent building a foundation for that. The rest of that goes up pretty darn quickly in comparison. But that's what we're talking about a lot of the time when we talk about a foundational element or a lifetime income and how critical that is. Unless you spend the time going through that process and understanding how this piece is really a critical element for you in your retirement, the rest of it just kind of may not ever happen, is the truth about it. And it may not, you might have a beautiful vision, but that just may not be a possibility. But if we put this piece together, the rest of those pieces can fall into place much more quickly and be, and it's just the journey becomes a lot more fun overall. And that's really what I had to share about that. Tony, I want to ask you a question as far as some of your experience. You've shared some stories with us in just working with some different demographics, especially with doctors and some of the feedback and the experiences that you've shared there. What are some of the critical elements that you come to when you talk about like preparing for retirement, preparing for estate type of scenarios?
Well, thanks, Seth. You guys have made some really excellent points, and the foundational visual is very important. Being primarily a planner, as I mentioned earlier, it isn't the exciting thing to talk about. It isn't the thing that folks come in and want to kind of dig down into and start, addressing. It's more about how much I have in assets and how I can make them grow. As I mentioned earlier, without kind of an end in mind or where you want to be, it's kind of hard to do that. But another challenge is what you guys have been talking about, the health risks, the longevity risks, and as Seth just mentioned, the the foundational portion. And a big part of that is something that, for whatever reason, whether it's, parents and children or even significant others, life partners, spouses, etc., don't necessarily want to talk about because, they may not want to address it themselves is their plans if something doesn't go well. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. And if you overlook the planning necessary to take care of yourself and your family when the worst happens, it can be a time bomb for your whole plan. It can, the entire building, the skyscraper, can collapse around the foundation if you don't have that strong foundation. And one of those things are the legal documents. As Seth mentioned, I work a lot with physicians in the area I work in, a large medical center. And it's something that I hear constantly is when folks come in, even if it's for a procedure, as you age, a lot of times folks need to have surgical procedures regularly. And, at that time going in to then have to address if the documents necessary to make certain decisions or for somebody to be able to make decisions on your behalf if for whatever reason something goes wrong and you're unable to, whether it's personally based on your goals, like do not resuscitate order. A lot of folks I've spoken with in the past haven't had that conversation with each other. If something were to happen, what would they want to be done or not done? And, these are conversations that couples need to have with each other and families need to have with their children, or at least somebody designated, even if it's a third party that understands what your wishes are and helps you make sure that you have the documents in place to make sure that at that time, especially if it is, a time that's not due to a positive result, you're not focused on something other than taking care of what's important to you, yourself, your family, etc. You don't want to have to be running to court to get a probate order to release funds if somebody doesn't have a durable power of attorney in place. So reviewing your your legal documents, and not just from an estate planning standpoint, but just making sure that there is somebody in place that knows your wishes, that has the ability to voice those wishes on your behalf, to make financial decisions or transactions for you. It's incredibly valuable, and it's one of those things that, again, as we mentioned earlier, it's a hard conversation to have sometimes, but it is something that once you do address it and face the reality that it is something that needs to be looked at and can be very positive in the long run, it's not really that challenging to take care of.
Tony, I was just thinking about, a lot of us have had loved ones go into the hospital and, the doctor presents that kind of one-page slip that says, sign here for your healthcare directives. And you're in this emotional moment. You're figuring out what you want to do not resuscitate. You're like, I don't know that I'm ready to die today. Like it's not that, it's not really a great emotional time to make those decisions on what you really want at that point. And I think, and what's funny is how many doctors don't have this stuff in place. They see this every day and they always say, you should probably have prepped this. Do you have these forms? Like they don't have the forms either most of the time. And that's okay. But they don't have people holding their hands. We have on staff, legal help here. We've got other attorneys that we work with here locally. We have a number of resources where we can kind of, if someone came in, we can just literally, manage that process for them to get these kind of tasks done in their life. And not all of them have to be super expensive or a large outlay. We have attorneys that do all different levels of the needed based work, and it's priced accordingly, which is good. And but you don't want. No one wants to be stuck in that moment right before they're going to pull out a knife and cut you open and figure out whether or not who's going to make these decisions for you. You're like, oh, I don't know. Should I have this cousin, aunt, uncle, nephew, brother, sister? Who do I want to do this? And sitting down with an attorney and kind of discerning who it is, and then if they're not available, who that next person would be, and making sure that you're in a good place on those decisions. That's the healthy way to do it. So,
Right, and just from experience, the people that recognize that most, as we mentioned earlier with Dan, are the folks that have gone through that. If they've had a family member that they've had to do that on their behalf, and the planning wasn't in place ahead of time, they recognize what a nightmare it is to have to address those things in the heat of the emotional moment, and they personally don't want to necessarily put their family, their children, their grandchildren through that themselves, and they're very adamant about making sure that that's something that's taken care of. And as Ben mentioned, it may not be something that you need all of everything, but evaluating which things are important to you in your situation, and then taking care of those things that are pertinent to you, can be very important, save a lot of headaches in the end. And as I mentioned, even if things go well but they're delayed and somebody ends up having a longer recovery time and they need to access some funds for whatever, and it's an account that's in their name only, just being able to access them on their behalf can make a world of difference. And it's not as easy as just going in and saying, well, my husband's recovering and can't make this decision on his own, so he's asked me to do it. And they're not going to be able to make that transaction for you. So there are ways to kind of circumvent that ahead of time.
Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We have been talking about an aging America. There's all sorts of topics in and around this that we've been discussing today. And we're going to come back here in just a couple of more minutes and kind of land the plane here with a couple ideas. And we're going to take this around the table for each of us to kind of grab apart here and I think kind of last thoughts, right? What have we learned today? Where are we at with this? You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
If you're listening today and your questions are outside the box of estate planning or financial planning or any number of the pieces that we kind of traditionally talk about, don't forget that Brayshaw Financial offers auto, home, and business insurance. And we have an entire department that handles all of that for you. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 and be happy to take care of those needs for you. Or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And having a lot of fun here today talking about an aging America. And it's a part of our life that touches each and every one of us. Nobody is separate from or other than. We all get to be here together and have this conversation, and it's one that's really critical. We've talked a little bit about investing, like what are some ways that you can kind of be investing in the supply and demand around an aging America, and other critical components like long-term care in that conversation and that need that primarily should be addressed in the planning. As well as lifetime income, and what are some of the documents that we need to be thinking about? How do we prepare advanced directives and the conversations around those? So it's been a really full conversation for us here, and Tony Scola has been joining us here today, partner and mostly just a friend, a friend, and he's part of Brayshaw Financial Group. I don't think your microphone's on there, Ben, and I appreciate that you didn't get.
I hit the mute button.
That didn't get cut in.
That didn't get cut in.
Once you call me a friend,
it was
I hit his mute
inappropriate.
button.
It was just not needed, not necessary. So we were just talking with Tony about kind of some of his experience in preparing these legal documents and how that's really not the funnest thing to probably have the conversation around, but a greater sense of how we can be at ease once we've gone through this process and having those conversations ahead of sitting in the doctor's office, signing the paper saying what your advance directive or your will be at that moment, where that's an emotional experience. And if you've been there with a loved one and experienced this yourself, God bless you, because it is a challenge. So having the conversation ahead of time, what's important? Well, we think assembling a team is really critical. And we focus with our clients here at Brayshaw Financial Group a lot on this. It's the CPA. It's a lot of the time it can even be a relative or a friend that you bring into the conversation, and help them to understand what your wishes are.
I like that, and I think having that person that's going to provide a little bit of guidance, maybe some third perspective. The additional, because you're in an emotional state. And, we talk about investments all the time. And I'll come to Dan, hey, take a look at my portfolio. Tell me what you think. Do you see something I don't? Having that litmus test of just saying, am I blinded by something here?
Right.
Yeah, am I blinded by an emotional decision? Yeah, exactly. And lots of thought around this, not just your own, is really valuable. And we encourage that. I can't tell you how many people have come into this, into the office and have brought people on the phone to talk with us and kind of go through it. If anyone's not willing to kind of expose or open up that storyline, that would be a concern to me as a consumer.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's a good point. And sorry to interrupt, Seth, but go ahead.
I'm not, because I was done.
Oh, you were? Okay.
That was it. I'm out.
I think the team concept, is something that we all practice. We're always dealing with attorneys and CPAs and you name it. We're the financial arm, but having somebody, we usually end up kind of leading the pack most of the time.
Yeah, it becomes that much more from kind of the quarterback position in working through these scenarios, and things change as wealth kind of moves up the tiers, right? When we start talking about 5, 10, 15, 20 million, it's just kind of a different story at that point. And more often, we're going to be sitting down with a larger group of people that work, specifically in the context of what they work in and what they work through. But getting that team all together, all on board is just a real critical element here, because you don't want to do it alone. You don't have to, and you don't want to. And having the right people in place, and that takes time, because a lot of the time we're needing to learn to communicate with a different, culture or a different entity in what they do specifically for you and your family, and getting on the same page.
Totally agree, Seth. Actually, that's one of the things you mentioned, being a quarterback. I've used the analogy of an orchestra conductor as well. Finding a trusted advisor that you feel comfortable disclosing your situation to and having these conversations with can be really important, and it also minimizes your the work that you need to put in. Most people don't want to spend time doing the research and digging in, doing the due diligence on solutions and things like that. But having a team that you trust to be able to, call that special teams line out to take care of whatever it is that comes up, and knowing who needs to be addressed, who needs to be included in the conversation, and bringing them together on your behalf is one of the things that my clients have voiced is one of the biggest values to them. So it's a very important piece of the puzzle is to be able to construct that team and trust that they're looking out for your best interests. So.
One of the biggest components I think that I've seen and experienced about this whole conversation, and it's amazing to witness sometimes, but even before you bring in all of the outside experts and the people you would rely upon to give you specific advice for specific instances, make sure you take the time at home to have that conversation. Make sure that, the goals that you thought you had in common 20, 30 years ago when you started a family and bought a house and had the kids, they may not be the same today. And, it's a lot easier for the specialists and all the various fields to put together the plan and to kind of keep you on that rail to make sure that you achieve the goals you have. It's important for us to really understand that the goals are what you think they are. And so I definitely welcome people to consult with us first, have that conversation where we can, essentially ask you the questions to go home with, and then sit down at home with family, with the most concerned, the loved ones, and come back to us once you've, really identified what those goals are, and make sure that those wishes are in common still and what you thought they were 20 years ago when you had that conversation last.
Folks, you've been listening to Money on Tap, and hopefully you've gathered some information here that you can take home and have that coffee table conversation, that dinner table conversation with the people that you love and that you care for and that care about you. Bring that back to Brayshaw Financial Group. We're all planners and partners here at Brayshaw Financial. Tony, Dan, Ben, I'm Seth. All of us here at Brayshaw Financial, we welcome you and we're glad to have you. And thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to talking with you next week.
You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook. We're at /3D Investing. We're also on Twitter at BFG_LLC. And as always, you can also find us at yourmoneyontap.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking our podcast. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to make it a great day and a great life with you here at Money on Tap.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.